just chillin' with some Bloodstone villains, oh yeah.
Some people, they got a hold of the blackness or whatever, and other dudes was just like, we still who we are. So back then, you got to understand, one of the hustles in Los Angeles, dudes robbed banks. That's what they did. So,
Do you know what the movement was about?
Well, at that point, SLA stands for Simonese Liberation Army. And they kidnapped Patty Hearst because her daddy was, I guess, what's his name, William H. Hearst or something. And, it was just like, their thing was against all these white people have all these privileges and come down to, I guess, you got all the money. He who controls the money controls almost everything.
Black Panther formula was more radical. That's what it was. And overall, it was looking out for the blacks to be more empowered versus the establishment. That's what they were basically about.
Yeah, well, at the point of it is, it was a lot of nationalistic groups. They was black nationalists. Mm-hmm. So in doing that, those was like times coming out the 60s, going into the early 70s, you still had people who were, I guess you could say, what the new word would be radicalized or whatever.
1970s radical Sarah Jane Olson has been free.
Back then, you got to think about them people was, the Vietnam War stuff was just, it was still playing, it was people in war.
What effect do you think overall, after you saw what the police did to them, the brutality that came from the police and how they handled the situation, how did that impact the community?
Well, back then, people don't understand, Newton Police Station was one of the most violent, racist police stations in Los Angeles. Newton was worse than 77 before 77 got bad. Newton used to be named Shooting Newton. So you gotta if you are Eastside and you got family that's your parents, then they would have been told you about the police and what they do. And back then in the 70s, going up into the 80s, you still had police officers who used to take the police car home. They would drive home in the police car. So you knew where the police stayed. Mr. Kelly was a police. He stayed on our street. Now, at the time, we didn't know, you just a jailer. You work in the jail part. But we did know you a police. You got that uniform on and you drive the car home. It's parked right in your driveway.
Most of the people that came into the community did not live in the community. So therefore, they didn't know how to relate to the community. So they had no problem with destroying it or demeaning or tearing it down and killing black people. They just didn't have no problem with that.
The whole point of it is, it's the same thing as, if it's the same thing, if I walked into your house and told you go in your room, you are allowed to go to the bathroom here and there, but every other room is off limits to you, you will hate me and you will want to kill me as soon as you can. Mm-hmm. Well, it's the same thing when a policeman come into a neighborhood that your mama and daddy live in and tell you what you can't do over here and you can't do over there, and then it becomes resistance. Like, well, who are you to tell me what I can't do? It's the same thing when they declared a war on drugs. You declared a war on drugs and said, okay, this street right here and this street right here and over here, we don't like, and we gonna label these high crime areas and all this other stuff. But this is the street my mama live on. This is the street I love.
Yeah, they put everything in play. I mean,
so
from giving it the label.
Yeah, you scandalize it by putting it on the news and all this other stuff, so you can get these other people who are sympathetic to vote for you. It's the same thing they did with gang members. They did the same thing with gang members, where you gonna say we're gonna call you street terrorists and all this other stuff. How you gonna call me a terrorist, man? I ain't never did no terror, nothing. You know what I'm saying? If anything I did, I was misinformed. The bullshit you did.
Hey, let me touch on your pops being a businessman. When you turned villain, was he aware of it?
He was and he wasn't. He had went to prison. So my dad, I'm not gonna lie to you, my dad is my hero. He was my hero all growing up, and he still is. So my dad was a hell of a dude. My dad is a hell of a dude. But no, I knew my dad didn't really respect the Crips. He didn't respect Crips because he was a businessman, and the Avalon Crips was coming up in his neighborhood. So he didn't really like them. They were younger than him, and my dad was known for having hands. So they was like, they couldn't whoop him, so they wouldn't fuck with him like that. But when they were first coming up, he used to laugh at them like, y'all don't know what the fuck y'all doing. They didn't have the same style. The businessman was known for a certain style they had. They had Cadillacs and flashy cars, and they wore good clothes and fur coats and all that other stuff. Barry White was a businessman. That was my daddy's good partner. So, you know, they had different people. They had a certain flash, and then they had some of them that was just good with money. You know what I'm saying? Harry Jenkins was a businessman. Harry Jenkins, my mama told me, Harry Jenkins, he was the first man I ever seen that had cocaine, and he had a barrel full of it. No, a barrel. So this is like, what? You know, Harry Jenkins was the first black man I ever knew that had a Rolls Royce. He had two of them. One for him and his wife.
So was Kino also from your area?
No, we're talking about Kino. Kino out the projects, yeah. Oh man, Kino looked like the Cheeto Frito man. She was dice. Kino was a hell of a
Yeah, like 40 in the Cadillacs, different colors.
Hell of a gambler. Hell of a gambler. Yeah. Probably one of the luckiest gamblers in LA. Probably.
He used to go to the Zeta Inn in Gardenia, because I saw him in the Hillview, and I used to watch him pull up, and they go in there gambling for a whole day and night.
Chino, he used to, when we had gambling sacks in our hood, he used to come in there and gamble all the time. Chino was a good dude. Hell of a gambler, though. Probably one of the best gamblers I ever saw in my lifetime.
Kino is known for just being, and carry a bag of money and nobody would ever touch it.
$1 million in his briefcase.
Exactly. Yeah. That was the big
Why was he considered hands off? No one.
I never knew that. But for some reason, he was hands off.
Okay, it was a lot of people who, you know what I'm saying, what a lot of people don't realize, Harry O grew up in our neighborhood.
Yeah, he grew up out the 50 suit. Yeah.
Why they always throw him in a nigger suit?
Nah,
okay, they claimed him.
That, though. They claimed.
They claimed him when he got to jail.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people don't act like, you know what I'm saying?
I want to get to that jail stuff too, man.
Well, no,
yeah, you can.
You know, they claimed him. And then you know, Harry O is famous for having money, but people don't act like they don't know who Harry O brother is.
Yeah,
exactly.
He straight off the bottoms.
But people act like they don't know who his brother is.
Shit.
Dave.
Dave. Black Big Dave.
Dave.
Yeah.
Black Dave.
Black Dave, yeah.
So,
you gotta dig into that. What's his claim to fame? Why even bring him up?
Getting money.
He was super rich.
Them was money cats.
See, it was back then, it was certain people on the east side, them dudes was super rich. Like, real rich.
Storage unit.
Yeah.
This is before the Whitey Enterprises and the third.
But way before then.
Way before all that. Yeah.
Way before then. So, you know what I'm saying? But even
these guys were already advanced.
No, even no.
Tootie Reese's era.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
A little bit before him.
Before Tootie.
Because Tootie came up, Tootie got super rich with crack.
His initial hustle
was hoes. Heroin and hoes.
Was Papa Earl out of the bottoms too? Red Earl?
I think
Used
so.
to own all the junkyards and had the
Yeah.
I think he was. Yeah, yeah.